Lesson 7 for November 9 to 15, Our Forgiving God. Thursday, November 14, Praise and Petition. Question. Read Nehemiah chapter 9, verses 32 to 38. What is the focus of the conclusion of the prayer of confession? Nehemiah 9, beginning at verse 32. Now therefore our God, the great, the mighty and awesome God, who keeps covenant and mercy, do not let all the trouble seem small before you that has come upon us, our kings and our princes, our priests and our prophets, our fathers, and on all your people, from the days of the kings of Assyria until this day. However, you are just in all that has befallen us, for you have dealt faithfully, but we have done wickedly. Neither our kings, nor our princes, our priests, nor our fathers have kept your law, nor heeded your commandments and your testimonies with which you testified against them. For they have not served you in their kingdom, or in the many good things that you gave them, or in the large and rich land which you set before them, nor did they turn from their wicked works. Here we are, servants today, and the land that you gave to our fathers, to eat its fruit and its bounty, here we are, servants in it. And it yields much increase to the kings you have set over us, because of our sins. Also they have dominion over our bodies and our cattle at their pleasure, and we are in great distress. And because of all this, we make a sure covenant and write it. Our leaders, our Levites, and our priests seal it. Once again, the prayer turns to praising God for who he is, great, mighty, and awesome, one who keeps the covenant and has mercy. They seem sincere in their acknowledgement of God's goodness to them. They also bring a petition in the form of making a covenant with God, which is described in detail in chapter 10. What is their petition? We read it in verse 32. Now therefore our God, the great, the mighty, and awesome God who keeps covenant and mercy, do not let all the trouble seems small before you that has come upon us. The community has to pay tribute to the kings who are over them. Oppression from every side is plaguing the small company of Israelites, and they are tired of it. They have had to endure one tyranny after another, and they are hoping for a reprieve. Interestingly, they call themselves servants. After outlining the infidelity of their nation, they end by referring to themselves with that word. Servants, of course, obey those who are over them. The use of this term, then, implies that they realize they need to obey the Lord in ways that those who come before them didn't. This is an expression of their desire to be faithful to the Lord and his commandments, and as servants of God, they are asking him to intervene in their behalf. The community of Ezra and Nehemiah describe their current experience as being in great distress in verse 37, which can be compared to the affliction the Israelites experienced in Egypt, which we read yesterday in Nehemiah 9:9. Their prayer praises God for seeing their affliction in Egypt and not overlooking it. The community is now asking God to intervene just as he had in the past, even though they didn't deserve it, because no one, kings, princes, priests, or prophets, or fathers, was faithful. Thus, they are relying only on God's grace and mercy to them, and not on themselves or in their ancestors' works, in hopes that the Lord will intervene in their behalf. And so, to finish today, read Romans chapter 5, verses 6 through 8. How do these texts reflect what the Israelites were asking of God? What comfort can we draw from what the Israelites were asking and what Paul was saying in Romans 5, beginning at verse 6, For when we were still without strength, in due time Christ died for the ungodly. For scarcely for a righteous man will one die, yet perhaps for a good man someone would even dare to die. But God demonstrates his own love toward us in that, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. This week's lesson has been read by Dr. Percy Harold from Queensland, Australia. It is brought to you by Hope Channel, the Sabbath School Department, and through the services of Christian Services for the Blind. A video of this podcast also occurs on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.